Shalom, friends. Welcome to another Shear in Talmud. We're learning Masechet Berachot. I'm Eliyahu Shear from Chesed Ve'emet. You can find my site at www.lovingkindness.co. We're using the Koren Talmud Bavli by Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz. It's a very beautiful edition, as you can see in front of you, and you can follow along in the text together with us as we work through it. You can see in front of you the original Hebrew Aramaic text. You can see some notes on the side. There's some biographies, some photographs to help us understand the text, and of course the English translation together with notes within the English translation to help us understand the text a little bit better. Now we're on Daf Vav Amud Aleph. We're on page 6. And we're on side A of page 6, and we're dealing with a subject that speaks about God wearing tefillin. And we left off over here at this idea where it says, Umi mishtabach kutchebrichu v'shivchayu d'Yisrael. And is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the Holy One, blessed be He, praised through the praises of the Jewish people? And the Gemara answered yes, He is praised. Diksiv, as it's written, Es Hashem he'emarta hayom, Hashem you have affirmed today. Ukesiv, and it says, V'Hashem he'emircha hayom. And the subsequent verse says, and the Lord has affirmed this day that you are His treasure. Omar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to the Jewish people, Atem asisuni chativa achas bo'olam. You have made me one entity in the world. Va'ani e'eseh etchem chativa achas bo'olam. And I will make of you to be one entity in the world. On the left-hand side here in the notes, the word chativa is explained in more detail, which means an entity. In general, this term means something unique, exclusive. Rav Sadia Gaon explains that the root of the word is identical to the Arabic root. Sorry, my Arabic is not so great, but here's the word in front of us. And this word means to speak, to say. However, its primary meaning is to seek a wife to enter into a marriage. Therefore, the Gemara's affirmation that God is a single entity indicates that a marriage-like relationship was formed between God and the Jewish people, a concept that appears often in the prophets. So what we see over here is that the Jewish people make of Hashem one entity, and Hashem makes of the Jewish people one entity, and through this we enter into a relationship of marriage. And the idea was, as we went back in the Gemara, that God wears tefillin. We wear tefillin, and God also wears tefillin. The Gemara continues. Atem asisuni chativa achas bo'olam. You have made me one entity in the world. Meaning, how do we know such a thing? Who told us that we have turned God into an entity? Shene'emar, the proof that we have turned God into this, meaning one entity, this oneness, is Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, Hashem is one. Va'ani e'eseh etchem chativa achas bo'olam. And I will make of you to be one entity in the world. Shene'emar, as it says over there in the pasuk, Umi ka'amka Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. And who is like your nation, the Jewish people, one nation in the world? As I think we said last time as well, that the Jewish people, there's a word in Hebrew which is goy, which means a nation. Many people think that the word goy is derogatory. The word goy is not derogatory at all. It means a nation. And the Jewish people are called goy echad ba'aretz. The thing that differentiates us from the general nations of the world is that the Jewish people are considered to be one nation on the earth. We all follow one direction as a Jewish people. Omar le Rav Acha berei de Rava le Rav Ashi. So Rav Acha, the son of Rava, said to Rav Ashi, Teinach, all very well and good. Bechad beisa. If you say that this is what is included in the tefillin of Hashem, that it's included in one of the compartments. Bishar bate, my. But what about in the other compartments? Meaning, when we put on tefillin, we have two tefillin that we wear, one on the arm and one on the head. The tefillin on the arm consists of one box, and inside the box is one parchment, which consists of 4 parashiot, 4 paragraphs from the Torah. In the head tefillin, we also have the same parashiot, which are in the arm, we also have on the head tefillin. However, they are divided up into 4 different compartments. So according to this, it's all very well and good that God is wearing these tefillin. But the point is, if he's got head tefillin, this all does well for only one parsha, for one compartment. What about all the other compartments? Marley, so he answered him and he said to him, I'll tell you what goes into the other compartments. Kimi goy gadol, these are the other parchments. Who is like a nation that is so great? That is one of the parchments that rests inside the compartment of the tefillin. Or mi goy gadol, and who is a great nation? Another particular section. Ashrecha Yisrael, another section. Happy are you, or praiseworthy are you, O Jewish people. Oi Hanisa Elohim. And then the next one says, or has God attempted, and as we see over here, to go and take for himself a nation from the midst of another nation by trials, by signs and wonders. And another section, Ula Titcha Elion, which means, and to elevate you above all the other nations that he has made in praise, in name and in glory, that you may be a holy people to the Lord your God, as he has spoken. So this seems very interesting over here. As we see on the background, phylacteries, compartments, batei tefillin. These are 4 compartments. There are 4 compartments in the phylacteries of the head, which appear like thin slots. One of the 4 Torah portions in which the mitzvah of phylacteries is mentioned is inserted into each of these slots. On the side of the phylacteries, the letter shin is carved into the leather, the first letter of one of God's names, Shah, and we pronounce it as Shakai, although the name is really Shaddai, but we shouldn't pronounce it in that way. I'm only pronouncing it for the sake of sharing the teaching of what the name is. But when we speak about it colloquially, we do not pronounce God's name. Instead, we just say Shakai. This is the shin that appears on the sides of the head tefillin. So far we have quite a number of sections that are in God's tefillin. And we see over here, one section, another section, another section, another section, another 5 sections over here. So according to this, doesn't make sense. There are only 4 compartments. How can it be that God's tefillin has all of these sections in it? If this is the case, that all of these different sections are part of God's tefillin, comes out that there are too many compartments because there are too many parashiot. This makes no sense. Ella, how do we understand it? But rather, this particular section of the Torah, which says, who is like a great nation, and so on and so forth, and this section as well, who is like a great nation, these 2 are comparable to each other. This appears in one of the compartments. Then, Ashrecha Yisrael, Umi Kamcha Yisrael, these 2 sections, which says, praiseworthy are you, or happy are you, Jewish people, and Umi Kamcha Yisrael, who is like the Jewish people, your nation, the Jewish people, also appears in one compartment. Or Hanisa Elohim, or has God attempted? This also is in one compartment. And to elevate you. God is going to elevate you. In other words, the Elyon referring to the supernal one. This also is in one compartment. And that's how it works out that these different sections appear in the one tefillin with the 4 sections in God's head tefillin. And all of these parshiot, all of these different portions are written on the arm tefillin, because in the arm tefillin, all the parashiot are written together on one scroll, and they fit into one compartment. Whereas on the head tefillin, all the different parashiot, the 4 different parashiot, are separated by 4 different compartments within the head tefillin. Omar Ravin bar Rav Ada, the Gemara continues. Omar Rabbi Yitzchak, Ravin, the son of Rav Ada, said that Rabbi Yitzchak said, Kol haragil lavo lebeis hakneset, new section. Everybody who's accustomed to come to Shul, v'lo ba yom echad, and he doesn't come to Shul one day. Very interesting Gemara that we're learning now at this point in time. We're at a time period in the world where there is a very severe virus. And as a result of this virus, the great leaders of the generation, the rabbinical leaders, the rabbis, have actually stipulated quite clearly that it is forbidden to daven in a minyan at this point in time, because we're afraid that when people get together at this point in time, never mind, even if they keep their social distance of 2 meters according to the regulations, nevertheless, we're quite worried that this is not a safe way to deal with things at all. And the rabbis throughout the world have decreed clearly that we should not daven in a minyan. Generally speaking, we must daven in a minyan. But nowadays, because there is a pandemic, because there's a danger to life, the mitzvah of saving our lives outweighs any mitzvah of going to daven and to be part of a minyan. So let's remember that we always have to deal with what the mitzvah is at the time. And even though it's a mitzvah to daven with the minyan, we see that sometimes there's a mitzvah not to daven with the minyan. In our case, because of the distress, because of the danger involved, that we are putting our lives in danger, and we could also be putting the lives of other people in danger. Therefore, we must be careful not to be at shul davening with a minyan. In fact, not to be davening with the minyan at all, no matter how we make it up, whether it's in a shul, whether it's outside, and so on and so forth. And I listened to the words of this Gemara on this subject. Anybody who's accustomed to come to shul, and he didn't come one day, which means under regular circumstances, of course, there he was, always part of a minyan. And now, one day, the minyan carries on without him. He didn't come to shul. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mash'il bo, says the Gemara, that the Holy One, blessed be He, asks about him. It means to say he wasn't present at shul. Very strange. Now Hashem is upset. He says, where is this fellow? Why didn't he come to shul today? Shene'emar, because the pasuk says, Mi bachem yirei Hashem, shomeya b'kol avdo, asher halach chashechim ve'eino galo. Who of you fears Hashem, who listens to the voice of his servant, which means who's ultimately listening to the voice of Moshe, or is listening to the various voices of our leaders who say to us, we must go and daven. Asher halach hasheikim, and they go in darkness, ve'ein noga lo, and he doesn't have any light. Why is it that he goes in darkness? Because he's not at shul. He should be davening at shul. So by spending his time davening at home, it's as if he's not in the place where the light is. Where is the light? When there are 10 people who are davening together. 10 men davening together make up a minyan. The Shekhinah dwells there. There is light. And therefore, if a person didn't go to shul, he used to go to shul every single day. Shacharis, Mincha, Mariv, 3 times a day this fellow was davening at shul. And then all of a sudden, he stops going to shul. So the Gemara continues. Im ledavar mitzvah halach, if the person went for the sake of doing a mitzvah, if that's why he left the shul, why? Because he had to go somewhere in order to perform a mitzvah. It was somebody that needed his assistance, or something that he had to do, which corresponded to a mitzvah. And that's the reason that he wasn't at shul. Noigalo. So the Gemara says over here, not the ein nogalo, but rather nogalo. He has light. Why? Because when a person is involved in a mitzvah, he's involved in light. Okay, he chose to do the mitzvah rather than to be in the minyan, but mitzvah is mitzvah. Doesn't matter whether he was davening in the minyan or he was performing a mitzvah. Somebody who is involved in doing one mitzvah is exempt from doing another mitzvah. What do we want from the person? He can't split himself up into 2 different people to perform 2 mitzvahs at once. So he's performing a mitzvah in any case. However, if the person is taking it easy and he's taking a holiday, he didn't go to shul because he's taking it easy, that's his excuse. You know why I'm not going to shul? I don't feel like going to shul. I've got things to do, more important things, he says to himself. So if he went to do something of a nature that was not obligatory, which means it was only for his own selfish purpose, it wasn't for the sake of a mitzvah, then the Gemara says, Ein noga lo, then there is no light for him. This person is not going to have any light because of the fact that he has distanced himself from the shul, a place where the Shekhinah dwells. He has chosen instead to go on a path of his own. Now the Gemara continues. So we see, of course, from this particular idea that it is most important to daven with the minyan, and one should not excuse himself from davening with the minyan unless it's for a very important reason. Right now, as I said again, since we're at this point in time, we're speaking about the virus in the world, the rabbis have instructed us that not only is it that it's not an Aveira if he didn't daven with the Minyan, but it's a mitzvah if he's not davening with the Minyan. The mitzvah is not to daven with the Minyan. So what will happen? God will ask questions. Why is this person not davening in the Minyan today? Well, the answer will come back straightforward, because there is a virus in the world. And we need to take care of ourselves and look after our health at this point in time. And until the virus is removed, we can say to God, until you remove this virus ultimately from the world, that there is no danger to our health, we can't go back to Shul and daven. We need to say that to God. We need to say, if you want us back in the Shuls davening, bringing the Shekhinah into the world through the presence of 10 Jews, which is the mitzvah, what we need to do, then we can't do it if there's a virus. So God, you need to also do what is necessary to remove this virus from us in order that we can continue in our way of observing the Torah and the mitzvahs in accordance with your divine will. Now we continue. Yivtach b'shem Hashem. He should have had faith. He should have faith in the name of God. My timer, in other words, we're talking about the regular situation. The regular situation is he should be at Shul. Why did he choose to go and do something of an optional nature, something voluntary? It's not obligatory. He went off and did his own thing. What did he do it for? It was business. It was business, he says. I had to do business. I had to make an income. Then the Talmud says, Yiftach b'shem Hashem. You must have faith in Hashem. Meaning what? Daven in Shul. And don't worry about it. At some point in time, things will change. The business will come. And in any case, the money that was decreed for you on Rosh Hashanah that should come to you throughout the year is going to come to you one way or another. So long as, of course, you're putting your effort in, you're doing what you're supposed to do. The fact that you didn't get money today does not negate that the money won't come tomorrow. And if it doesn't come tomorrow, it does not negate that it won't come the next day. The money is still going to come because it has been decreed on Rosh Hashanah that the money is going to come. Nevertheless, of course, we must do whatever we can in order to earn that income. We need to put in our effort in whatever way we can to bring in that income, to show that we're there. We cannot spend the whole day at Shul looking at Hashem, looking up towards Hashem and saying, well, here we are davening, where's the money? Why is it not falling from the sky? That we don't need to do. Unless, of course, a person feels that he's on such a great level of faith that magically, as he walks up and down the Shul, perhaps he'll notice that people have dropped $10 and $100 on the floor, perhaps. If he has such faith, well, good for him. Let him go ahead and try that skill. But if he doesn't have that faith and he's one of the regular people in the world, then he should know that he has faith that God will indeed bless him according to what he's already going to give him from Rosh Hashanah. But nevertheless, he has to do what he has to do. But the fellow didn't come to Shul because he says, I've got more important things to do. I've got business to take care of. He makes a mistake because his duty is still that he needs to be at Shul. So there's a time for Shul and there's a time for business. And he can't exclude the one from the other. My timer, what's the reason? Mishum tahave le'liftuach b'shem Hashem, because he should have had faith. He should have had faith in the name of God. V'lo batach. But he didn't have any faith. He didn't trust that God is going to help him. And therefore he's liable. The most logical reason as to why a person didn't go daven with the Minyan is probably because he's afraid that if he spends so much time davening, he won't be able to devote himself to his business. He needs to be at business at a certain time, early in the morning, take care of what he needs to earn a living. And that's why he didn't go to Shul. Well, in such an instance, the Talmud says, don't behave in that way. One has to have faith in Hashem, that Hashem will bless him in any case. And then he goes to Shul, he davens his shachris, it takes him 45 minutes, it takes him an hour, however long necessary, and he gets back to his business, knowing fully well, having full trust that just as God can provide for him the income in a 7-hour day or an 8-hour day, he can provide in less, in 7 or 6 hours, depending on whatever it is that he has devoted in terms of his business hours and in terms of his hours towards Hashem. Omar Rabbi Yochanan continues with another teaching. Listen to this beautiful teaching. We're continuing the theme of the Beis Knesset. We're continuing the theme of how important it is to be davening in a shul, as we've discussed on previous pages. And now we're continuing this theme of how important it is to daven with the Minyan. And Rabbi Yochanan says When HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to Shul, remember, we have this, we learned from before that one of the things about a Minyan, about 10 Jews, is that when 10 Jews are going to be together, the Shekhinah is going to be amongst them. And we learned in the previous Gemara, if you recall from our previous Shear, that at the end of the day, Hashem, the Shekhinah, dwells even if there are 3 people, even if there is only 2 people, even if there's only 1 person, Hashem, the Shekhinah, dwells with his people. What was the difference between the situation of there being 10 Jews, that the Shekhinah dwells amongst them, whereas the Shekhinah also dwells with 1? Why do we need to mention 10? So we said because with regard to 10 Jews, the Shekhinah precedes them. The Shekhinah is waiting for the 10 Jews. So now there's a catch, because this is the scenario. At the time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu now comes to the Shul, meaning to say the king has walked into the Shul, what do we expect? When the king walks into the Shul, ultimately, we should already be there. The king shouldn't have to be there before us, or at least as the king is entering, we immediately follow behind the king. Imagine, for example, that we're waiting outside the Shul, and as we are waiting there, the king comes past, and as the king enters before us, showing honor, he's showing us honor because he's entering the Shul before us and preparing to accept us as we enter the Shul. And immediately afterwards, we follow him. This is true honor. But of course, if we only enter the Shul 20 minutes later after the king has already walked in, this is highly disrespectful. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes into the Shul, v'lo matzah ba'asara, and it turns out that there aren't 10 people there yet, yatu koes. The Talmud says he becomes angry. Shene'emar, because the verse teaches, and the verse says, Madua bati, why have I come? Ve'ein ish karati, and there is, and when I came, there was nobody. Karati, ve'ein oneh, I called out, and nobody answered. This is what the king says. Here I was entering, I came, and there wasn't anybody around. I then called out, and nobody answered. Omar Rabbi Chelbo, Omar Rabbi Huna. Rabbi Chelbo said that Rav Huna said, "Call Hakol." And this is so. That was the teaching, and this, of course, is where we end the teaching of about coming into the Shul. I'm just checking if there are any notes about it. No further notes. Okay, we continue. Omar Rabbi Chelbo said, Rabbi Chelbo, Omar Rav Huna. He said that Rav Huna said, Kol hakuveya makom letfilah. So anybody who fixes up his place in prayer, Elohei Avraham be'izro, the God of Abraham will be his aid, will help him. Which means to say that a person must set up a fixed place to daven in Shul. Number one, a person should always have a fixed place to daven altogether, meaning he has a Shul that he davens in, and that becomes his fixed Shul. But there's a higher level than that, if one can abide by it, and that is to really have one's own seat in the Shul, which means to say whenever he comes to Shul, that's his seat. Now, let's be clear. It does not need to say that because he made a seat right over there, and a guest walked into Shul one day, and the guest didn't know that it's his seat. So the guest came and sat in his seat. So the fellow comes up to me and says, I'm so sorry, get out of my seat. Why? Because that's my seat. Well, what do you mean, the guest says? He says, I've been sitting there for the past 3 years. It is my seat. Nobody else can sit there. Well, that's all very well and good in accordance with this teaching of the Gemara. I'm not quite sure how well it goes down in terms of working on oneself as a human being, in terms of working on oneself as a Torah scholar, and so on and so forth, being humble and understanding that the fellow doesn't realize that it is in fact your seat, and so on and so forth. The truth is that even if one davens within 6 feet, within 4 cubits, within Arba Amos of that particular seat, one is still said to be davening in one's own seat. And in any case, as before, even if one doesn't say like that, and instead one says what it means to have a fixed place means to be in a fixed shul, then it doesn't necessarily mean a fixed seat, that it has to be the front right seat. That is the seat that he sits in. But rather, since he davens in that shul, he already has a fixed place that he davens in. And that in itself is sufficient. But yes, there is a mitzvah that one should, as far as possible, find a place that he's going to daven in. And that will be his regular place that he davens in. And the closer that he can get to finding a seat that will always be his seat, all the better. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he has to embarrass other people, shout at them, and kick them out of his seat, especially if they're guests and they're new and they don't know what's going on. In the event that it is his seat, he should be very sensitive to know how to deal with a particular person. Certainly, if it's the person's first time, he should be all the more sensitive. If he notices the person keeps on taking the seat, after 3-4 times he starts coming to Shul and he thinks it's his seat, perhaps he can gently approach the person and he can say, I'm really sorry. I noticed that you were sitting in the seat and I wasn't going to say anything. I thought perhaps you were a guest. And I noticed the previous week and the previous week and the previous week, you seem to be sitting in the seat. Actually, I have been here for a number of years and I noticed that you're very new to the Shul. I welcome you to the Shul. I wish you all the best. There are quite a number of seats around here that are totally free. This has been my seat for so many years. I would truly appreciate it if you would mind choosing another seat so that I can continue sitting here. There's always a way to deal with it, a level of sensitivity, and that is indeed how we should be towards each other. As much as the mitzvah applies, we need to be sensitive as well. Let us take a look at the halacha over here. One who sets a fixed place for his prayer, one should establish a permanent place where he always prays. If he prays in a synagogue, it should always be the same synagogue. Even within the synagogue, he should establish a permanent place where he prays. If he prays alone in his house, e.g., like for example, nowadays, we should all be praying alone in our homes. So in that case, what should we do? How do we fix up a place? E.g., if he lives in a village with no prayer quorum, he should establish a permanent place in his house for prayer. So choose wherever is most comfortable. A clean place, naturally. It shouldn't be a dirty place. There shouldn't be children running about that place, making a mess, and so on and so forth. And as far as possible, it should be a place where he can stand or sit and concentrate without people disturbing him. To whatever degree he can do it, all the better. That is the principle that we must go by. Let us continue in the Gemara. Right, so we said that anybody who fixes a place for prayer, the God of Abraham is his aid. Incidentally, I'd like to share another type of thought along these lines of fixing a place of prayer, and this is based on the very next teaching, as we'll see. I'll read the teaching, and then I'll read this teaching, and then I'll share the idea. When a person dies, Omrim lo, they say to him, meaning to say in the Beis Din Shel Maila, in the courts above, in the world to come, they say to him when he comes up to Shamayim, Anav, what a humble person. Chasid, what a pious person. Mitalmidav shel Avram Avinu, this person is of the students of Abraham, our forefather. Now, let's just think about this idea before we continue in the Gemara. Why would they say about this person that he's so humble? He's humble because he chose a seat. I already said that at the end of the day, if the person sits in that seat and people come and they also want to sit in that seat and he yells at them, get out of my seat. I've been sitting there for 3 years already. Who do you think you are? You're just a guest. What type of a humble person is that? Chasid, this is a pious person. He keeps kicking people out of his seat. Every time he goes to daven, somebody else is sitting in his seat. He kicks him out. What type of a pious person is this? How can he be considered of the Talmud Shel Avram Avinu, that he's one of the students of Avram Avinu? And the answer is like this. You see, when we go to daven at Shul, it's not always perfect. It's not always pleasant. For example, many times when we daven, people push, people shout, people disturb us, people do all sorts of things in Shul to make us feel totally uncomfortable, totally unwelcome. Should they do it? Definitely not. But nevertheless, we go to Shul and we notice these are the people that surround us. We're sitting and davening in Shul. The fellow next to us is talking to his fellow. Should he do it? Absolutely not. But he's doing it anyway. What are we supposed to do? And then you know what? The next week or the next day, depending on which shul we're davening, depending on which day of the week we're talking about, the Shachris, Mincha, Mariv, again, the same thing comes about. He goes to shul the next time, same story. Then he goes to shul the next time, same story again. When he dies, they say, what a humble person. What a pious person. Why is he humble? Why is he pious? Because in spite of the arrogance that he finds himself up against in the shul, he still returns. He's still there davening in the Minyan. What an amazing thing. You know, it's so easy for a person to be feeling unwelcome in a shul that even after he davens there once, he never goes back again. He's not prepared to. Well, according to this teaching that we're learning over here, such a person is the arrogant person. The person who's humble was the one who was able to go and sit in the seat, even though there was somebody else disturbing him all the time. Sometimes we don't see things the way we should see things. There are two sides to it. On the one side, it is never permitted to speak in davening. It is never permitted to cause somebody else to lose their concentration in davening. It is never permitted to bring one's children to shul so they can run around and disturb everybody and run underneath their legs all the time to get to their parent who's on the other side of the bench, and so on and so forth. Constant disturbance. One asks the person, please don't bring your children to shul if they're going to make a noise. And the person gets upset about it. Nevertheless, when the person does return back to shul and he shows he's still there, he's still davening. When this person dies, because of the fact that he was there, he was prepared to be there at the shul, to daven in the Minyan, and he made a permanent place to daven. So we say when he dies, they greet him. They say, what a humble person. Yes, he was very humble. In spite of the disturbance, he still went back to shul. He still tried his best. Of course, they should have been quiet, but they weren't. All right, but he still did his best. He is the humble person. He is a great individual. Avraham Avinu. Now let's speak a little bit about Avraham Avinu. Avraham, our forefather. Minalan dikava makom. Where do we know it from? Since the teaching says that this person who fixes a place in shul, meaning that he goes to shul all the time regularly, he sits in the same seat even in spite of all the disturbance and so on and so forth, but he follows the ways of Avraham Avinu. That means to say that Avraham Avinu also had a place that he davened in, a fixed place. The Gemara asks, Avraham Avinu menalan tikva makom. Where do we know it from? That he fixed for himself a place to daven. The Gemara answers diksiv, because it's written, Vayashkem Avraham baboker el hamakom asher amad sham. That Abraham awoke, he got up early in the morning to that place, and he went to that place, that is where he was standing, which means to say, this pasuk is coming to teach us that Avraham Avinu would go and pray in the very same place that he would pray before. How do we know that? Ve'ein amida ela tefillah. This that it says, Vayashkem Avraham baboker el hamakom asher amad sham, that he stood there. It didn't say that he prayed there. It says that he stood there. The Gemara asks, Ve'ein amida ela tefillah. The truth is that whenever you see the word amida, which means standing, this refers to tefillah, prayer. And indeed, the prayer that we daven 3 times every day, of the 18 blessings, of the 19 blessings, is known as the Amidah. Amidah means standing, because whenever we refer to the idea of standing, we refer to the idea of prayer. Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, how do we know that Amidah refers to prayer? Vayamot Pinchas vayifalel, because it says that Pinchas stood up and he prayed. So we see from here that Amidah, Ya'amod, and he stood up, Pinchas stood up, vayifalel, and he prayed. So we see that standing refers to prayer. Omar Rabbi Chelbo, Omar Rav Huna, a new teaching. Rabbi Chelbo said that Rav Huna said, another teaching about the Beis Knesset, about Shul. Hayotzi mi Beis HaKnesset, when a person leaves Shul, Al yafsia psia kasa, a person should not take big steps. When one leaves Shul, so this is interesting, because usually when we leave Shul, we finished with our davening, we take off our Tefillin in Shachris or whatever it is, Mari, we finished the evening prayers, we have to go home and eat supper. We've got things to do. So immediately Shul is over, boom, before even the last Kaddish he said, we're already by the door. We're ready to leave the Shul. We've got to get home quickly. And after all, the traffic's going to be crazy, and there's quite a number of cars in the Shul parking lots. And if he doesn't get out quickly, there's going to be a jam. There'll be a traffic jam. He won't be able to get out. Let him get out quickly and avoid all the traffic and the rush and so on and so forth. But the Gemara says, when he leaves Shul, don't take big steps. This is what the Gemara is referring to. Do things gently. You're leaving Shul now. When you leave a place that you feel close to, it's difficult to part. When you leave a place that you feel reluctant to be in, you want to get out as fast as possible. One's reaction to leaving Shul, when one is finished davening, tells us how one feels about the Shul. If we leave the Shul and we're kind of trying to get out, we can't quite make it, we're having a hard time leaving the Shul, it's probably because we feel attached to the shul. We'd like to continue davening. We'd like to continue learning. What can we do? We have to get on with the rest of the day. However, when we leave the shul quickly, in a hurry, this tells us another message. It tells us that our desire is to get on with our activities. And unfortunately, the shul was there interrupting what it was that we were doing. Omar Abaye said, Lo amaran elelemepak. You should know something. That we only said this with regards to leaving the shul. When one leaves the shul, don't take big steps. Aval leme'al. But when it comes to entering the shul, mitzvah lemirhat. It is a mitzvah to run. When it comes to going to shul, then we run. Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, nirtefa ladas es Hashem, which means to say that the pasuk says here, and let us know eagerly, strive to know the Lord. Nirtefa ladas es Hashem. We're pursuing to know Hashem. When it comes to serving Hashem, when it comes to the davening in the shul, we race to the shul. One who eagerly enters the synagogue displays his enthusiasm to follow the path of God. Let us just take a look at these notes on the side again, that one who leaves the synagogue should not take steps. However, with regard to large steps, however, with regard to entering, one should hurry on his way to the synagogue, especially when he nears the synagogue, where it is obvious that he's rushing to prayer. This is so even on Shabbat, when it is otherwise prohibited to take large steps. One should not rush when leaving the synagogue, unless it is obvious that he is leaving temporarily with the intention to return to his prayers, or if it is obvious that he is leaving the synagogue to proceed to the study hall. If everybody knows that this fellow leaves the Beit Knesset in order to get to the Beit Midrash, he leaves the prayer house in order to go to the study house, then everybody knows why he's leaving in a hurry, to study Torah. But when people know that he's getting into his car as fast as possible to get to his business, and people will say, well, I guess he sees his business as being ikar, the main thing, and the shul and davening to Hashem is tafel. It's secondary in importance. It's not so great for him. He really wouldn't be at shul were it not for the fact that he was forced by the mitzvah to daven in the shul. Now, he brings down here in the halakha, in the notes, that the halakha was only said with regards to leaving. This statement of Abaye is problematic. He points out here in the notes. It seems, on the one hand, that he is coming to explain Rav Huna's statement. On the other hand, he seems to be saying exactly the same thing. This anomaly was explained in different ways. Some say that Rav Huna's statement that one may not run when leaving the synagogue does not necessarily indicate that one is permitted to run when entering the synagogue. Conceivably, running into the synagogue could be interpreted that he is running into the synagogue in order to finish his prayers quickly, as they are a burden. That's the reason that he was running. He's running to shul because he wants to quickly do the prayers. And sometimes people, even they run to shul, they come to shul 10 minutes late for mincha, 15 minutes late for mincha. But the Chazan is already on to the repetition of the Shmona Esrei. He's racing to shul. People watch him racing to shul. They think that he's racing to shul because he's in a hurry to daven. He's not in a hurry to daven. He's in a hurry to finish his daven. If he was in a hurry to daven, he'd be at shul already half an hour before. So sometimes it can be that the person is racing into shul to race his prayers. Furthermore, while leaving the synagogue, the merit of his prayer protects him from any possible injury while running. Before he prays, he lacks that protection. Others suggested an alternative interpretation. So this is another idea that we're saying over here, that the idea is that when we come to shul, we should be very careful. When we come to shul, we come slowly to shul because we're afraid that it could be that we don't have the merits to get us to shul. So be very careful as you walk into shul. When we leave, so maybe then, of course, we could race out of the shul because we'll be protected because of the prayers. Furthermore, while leaving the synagogue, the merit of his prayer protects him from any possible injury while running. Before he prays, he lacks that protection. Others suggest an alternative interpretation. It was only said with regards to leaving, means that this halacha only applies to one who leaves the synagogue and does not plan to return. However, with regard to entering, if he plans on returning to the synagogue, there is a mitzvah to run. Or one leaving the synagogue may not run, as he left in order to go home. But to enter the study hall it is a mitzvah to run even when leaving a synagogue. It all depends on how we read this particular teaching over here, which is not so clear, and there are different ways of seeing it. Of course, the most important thing is for a person to be realistic, to be truthful, and to know exactly why it is that he is running or he is walking slowly, depending on what it is that he's doing, whichever he's doing in terms of the shul. We continue. Omar Rabbi Zaira said the following. Meireish, I'll tell you a story. He said in the beginning, I saw these rabbis that they were racing over in order to go and study Torah on Shabbos. Amina. So I said, Ka mechaliyan Rabbanan Shabta. These rabbis are breaking Shabbos. On Shabbos, which is a day of rest, we should be doing things slowly. And he saw these rabbis racing to Shul. This made no sense, because on Shabbos we do things slowly. They should therefore walk to Shul gently, quietly. Kevan dishmana lahad Rabbi Tanhum, Omar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Then, when I heard this teaching from Rabbi Tanhum, that he said that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said that this is the teaching, Le'olam yarutz adam ledivrei halacha va'afilu b'Shabbos. Always, a person should run to the thing or the word of halacha, even on Shabbos. So this was the teaching. There was the teaching that Rabbi Tanhum said, that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, that when it comes to studying Torah, one can race to the shul even on Shabbos. And so since Rabbi Zaira learned this teaching, he said, could be that that's a good way of looking at it. Shene'emar, as it says, Acharei Hashem yelchu ka'ariyeh yishag, which means they shall walk after the Lord, who will roar like a lion. In other words, one should rush as though he were chased by a lion. Ananami rahikna. So too, I will also run. I'm also going to run from now on, said Rabbi Zera. Once I understood that there is a mitzvah to study Torah, and one should be enthusiastic about studying, then even though it's Shabbos, and Shabbos is a day of rest, and we should do things slowly, nevertheless, it is appropriate to run for the sake of the Torah that we're going to learn on Shabbos. Omar Rabbi Zaira, we continue with the teachings of Rabbi Zaira. Oh, here we have a note over here on the side referring to the Pirka. What does Pirka mean? From the word Perek, which means a paragraph. This was a lecture delivered by one of the sages on matters of Torah to the general public. Specifically, the lecture delivered before each of the 3 pilgrim festivals addressed that festival. The primary focus of these lectures was halakha, in attendance with the community at large, incapable of understanding the subject matter, and Torah scholars who were already familiar with it. Therefore, the reward for attending the lecture is for running. Oh, I'm sorry. So the Pirka that we're referring to here is referring to the next teaching over here. So the Pirka is the teaching that they would go to learn from the rabbis, especially 3 times a year for Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. So he says over here that Omar Rabbi Zaira said, I've read the Pirka, the reward for the Pirka that we learned about over here in the previous teaching, the reward for the Pirka, the reward for racing towards this study of halakha is rihata, is the running. Why is the reward running and not the studying? Because most people who go to the Shear, as we know, it can happen even today. A lot of people, for example, go to Daf Yomi. The Daf Yomi can be finished in 45 minutes. Some rabbis will finish it in half an hour straight. Boom! They go through the whole page of the Gemara in half an hour straight. Well, anybody who reads a page of Gemara, even in the English translation, in half an hour, will pick up the barest minimum of what the page says. They will not really understand what's happening. To understand the page that we're learning, we need to dissect it. We need to read each part. We need to translate the words carefully. We need to hear what's being said. We need to hear the message. We need to hear the halakha, the discussion, the debate, the give and the take. We need to see why one opinion holds in one direction and why an opinion holds in another direction. So a person goes to a Daf Yomi Shiur, a balabayis. The poor fellow, he can read the Hebrew, perhaps, or reads the Aramaic, but more than that, he can't translate any of the words himself. He sits there and he listens to the rabbi giving the Shiur. After half an hour straight, boom, he leaves the Shiur. One wonders, what did he acquire from this half an hour of the Shiur? Did he really gain anything? Oh, so Rabbi Zera said, you know something? I've read the Pirka Riyata, that the reward for the study of Torah is the running. At least the fact that the person is enthusiastic and he runs towards the Shear. Maybe he doesn't really understand what's going on in the Shear, but he could have run elsewhere as well, to be honest. He could have run to business dealings. He could have run somewhere else. He ran to study Torah. So perhaps he might not necessarily get the reward for understanding the Torah study that he was involved in, because he doesn't understand it. He just says, Omar Rabbi so-and-so, Omar Rabbi so-and-so, Omar Rav so-and-so, in the name of so-and-so. That's all he hears all the time. This rabbi said in the name of so-and-so, said in the name of Rabbi so-and-so. And when he leaves the shiur, they ask, what is the page about? He says he doesn't know. But he remembers Rabbi Shua ben Levi said something in the name of so-and-so. He remembers it. The reward for such an individual is the fact that he ran towards the shiur. When going to a shiur, be excited. Run towards it. You're learning online now, be excited about it. Run towards the shiur. The moment you open up your computer, immediately you log into the various shiurim, to YouTube, wherever it is, you type in what the shiur is that you want to learn. Immediately the shiur pops up. You're excited by it. You can't wait to get the shiur going. You want to learn. There's a reward for that race, for that running towards the shiur. Says the notes over here, some explain that this series of adages does not imply that the reward is exclusively for the crowding mentioned. Rather, the reward for attending the lecture includes a reward for running as well. The implication is that although running and crowding seems tangential and not essential to the mitzvah, one is nevertheless rewarded for that aspect as well, as it too is significant. Which means to say, the truth of the matter is, there is a reward for both, according to this commentary over here. There is a reward for learning Torah, but at the same time, we must not neglect to point out that there is also a reward for the running. One is rewarded for going towards the shiur as much as one is rewarded for the shiur itself. There is a reward for going to Shul as much as there is a reward for being at Shul. One should never think that the walk to Shul was so long that it was a waste of time, because ultimately, he goes to Shul, he spends an hour in Shul, but he had to walk there. It took him 25 minutes to get there, or whatever, like on Shabbos. The Shabbos davening, let's say, is 2 hours or 2.5 hours. And it takes him 25 minutes, it takes him 40 minutes to walk to Shul, 40 minutes to walk back. And he thinks to himself, what a waste of time. The reality is that he receives reward for the walking as well. Omar Abaye said, Agra dechala duchaka. That the reward for the challah, remember we learned about the challah before on the previous page in Masechet Berachot, which speaks about the idea of attending these various lectures that were known as the kala. That's how they were called. And when they attended the lectures, there was a lot of pushing going on. We remember that we said over there in the Gemara that this pushing is really a sign that it's the demons that are pushing up against us and making us feel uncomfortable. Well, whatever it is, whatever you want to say is the reason for this feeling. The point of the matter is that when one goes to these big meetings where the Rosh Yeshiva, the big rabbi, is giving a shiur to the entire community, and everybody pushes in and they squeeze against each other and they can't move, we say that the reward for these lectures, again, because most people don't necessarily understand all the lomdus, they don't understand the big teachings of the Rosh Yeshiva. So what are they going there for? Even the average person will go to this particular shiur. He'll go to the challah. But what's he going to learn from it? So then he gets the reward of duchaka. He gets the reward because of the pushing. Because it's uncomfortable for him, and yet there he is still trying to learn, he receives a reward for this pressure. It's irritating him. God says, but I'll reward you for it. Because you're there, you're present, you're doing everything that you can in order to learn Torah. Omar Rava said, Agra dishma'ata sevara. The reward for learning the halachic traditions is the logic involved, the logical analysis. What does this mean exactly? Again, although it comes out at the end of the story that we learn out a halacha. What is the halacha? The halacha is don't cook on Shabbos. But in order to understand the whole prohibition of not cooking, we need to examine a number of sources to know exactly how this comes out, what's the logic behind it, where does the mitzvah come from, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, don't cook. What do I need to know everything else for? So Rava points out that the reward for the halacha is not just the halacha. The reward is the effort that a person went through in order to get to that halacha. So the fact that a person had to go through all sorts of thoughts and all sorts of proofs and discussions and so on and so forth to arrive at a truth which the average person could arrive at by simply opening up a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch without learning all the discussions. He needn't open up the Gemara. He needn't see all the arguments. He can just read. When it comes to Shabbos, don't cook. Don't do this. Don't do that. Fine. Do Kiddush, whatever it is. That's the halacha. Nevertheless, when a person is engaged in the arguments, then that in itself brings on the reward. It's the discussion which brings the reward, not necessarily the fact that you have worked out the halacha. And therefore, even if you never come to work out the halacha, but your whole day was spent just simply debating backwards and forwards, trying to get to understand what the halacha could actually be, there's a reward in that as well. So even if a person came up with a scenario that he didn't know what the halacha is, because he's so busy trying to find out what could the halacha be, and his mind can't contemplate how to get to the depth of the halacha. And all he can tell you are all the different arguments that go on. And the whole day went by, and all he did was discuss arguments. He comes home that day, they ask him, what halachas did you learn? He says, I don't even know where to begin. All I can tell you, there were great arguments about one thing led to another, and therefore this and that. And he's not quite sure, is the halacha in this direction or not? Nevertheless, such an individual will receive reward because of the effort that he spent learning the logic of the discussion. Omar Rav Papa, the Gemara continues, another teaching related to rewards of different things due to certain things happening. Agra Devei Tamaya, the reward for a house of mourning, which means to say when we go to visit somebody who has, God forbid, lost a relative, there's a mitzvah of Nikum Avelim, Nakem Avelim, we have to go and comfort the mourners. What is the reward of comforting? Where did you get the reward of comforting the mourners from? What do you need to do in order to qualify to receive a reward because you comforted the mourners? You know what you need to do? Shtikuta. You need to be quiet. The Gemara says, according to Rav Papa, that if you want to get reward for consoling, for comforting the mourners, you know what you need to do? Just sit there. Just go to visit the mourners and sit down in a seat. You don't need to tell jokes. You don't need to ask them how they're doing. You don't need to wish them well. You don't need to do anything. The reward comes from being quiet. The fact that you were able to present yourself and you're prepared to acknowledge to the mourner that you understand the pain that they're going through. How do we acknowledge it? Because we sit quietly. We don't tell jokes. We don't make fun of anything. We don't start conversations. At certain points in time, we may not even start the conversation with the mourner. And even answering, one has to be very gentle. One has to be very sensitive, super sensitive. Sometimes people come up with all sorts of psukim. The Lord has given and the Lord has taken away. Blessed is the name of the Lord, they say to the person who has lost a relative, and they think that they're comforting him. Well, comforting doesn't come from quoting passages of the Torah. Comforting comes from being quiet, says Rav Papa. Says the language over here, the note says that the Beit Hamaya, which actually is a difficult word, a sentence, a phrase to translate, many attempted to explain the source of this term. Some explained that the word tamaya means bones in Aramaic, and therefore the term means house of the bones of the dead. Others interpreted homiletically through letter transformation that tet mem aleph, tamaya tet mem aleph becomes aleph beit lamed, meaning mourner. Aleph beit lamed. I'm not quite sure how he gets this. Aleph beit lamed from tet mem aleph. He gets aleph beit lam. Oh, he goes one forward. So the tet, mem lamed tet. No, I'm not sure how he gets it. Transformation, meaning mourner. That's how he gets it, but I'm not quite sure how he got letter transformation over here. The Gaonim had a variant reading here. Beit ta'ama, the house of reason. This is because the house of mourning is a place where people attempt to console the mourners by seeking to rationalize the tragedy that befell them. And so it's related to the word Beit Ta'ama. And therefore, that's what this expression here means. So we see here that the reward for consoling the mourners from going to sit with them is through one's being quiet. It's for the silence, which is the optimal manner for those consoling the mourners to express their empathy. Oma Mazutra said, Agretadanisa tzedakta, that the reward for fasting is tzedakah. What does it mean the reward for fasting is tzedakah? It means you can either fast and go on a diet. So for example, when you finish doing your fast, you tell people you lost a pound or you lost a kilogram of weight because you were fasting. So you lost weight. Or perhaps you were davening and you were using the time of the fast in a constructive manner. Well, one of the things that's also necessary, as the rabbis point out, is that instead of eating meals oneself, which would cost money, one should take the money of the equivalent towards the meal, and one should use that money to give to a poor person so that he will have a meal to eat. Because the poor person, he might not even have a meal to eat altogether. So we need to help him and give him money to eat. So therefore, the reward for the fast is the tzedakah. The reward for fasting is not because one fasted, but rather because of the tzedakah that one gave to a poor person so that he should be able to have food. It's one thing to fast and be a tzaddik himself, but it's quite another thing to fast and to give tzedakah to somebody who needs it, to show that he acknowledges that the other person needs something as well. We've come to the end of the shiur. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope that you've enjoyed this shiur, and if you have, please click on the like button to indicate that you've enjoyed it. Put a positive comment. Click on the bell button to click on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel, and the bell to be notified of future shiurim. And once again, I welcome anybody to be in touch with me if you'd like to. I'm Eliyahu Shear from Chesed Ve'emet. You can find my site at www.lovingkindness.co. Please feel free to be in touch. And not only that, please feel free to become a partner in the activities that we're involved in. See the activities that we're involved in on our site. Join us, become a partner. We'd appreciate you on our side and supporting us in these activities. Don't forget, please share this shiur with your friends if you have enjoyed it. We need to get out there as much as possible ourselves, and we'd appreciate all the help that we can get from you. And of course, it will help us to give us the encouragement to continue putting out more of these videos. In the meantime, I wish you all the best. May everybody be healthy at this time when we are situated with this terrible virus. May we all be healthy, and may this shiur itself be as a merit towards all of Klal Israel to bring health and good stability for all the Jewish people. I'm Eliyahu Shear, www.lovingkindness.co. Wishing you all the best. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.